Hey everybody, JK here again to do another live stream. And we're going to continue where we left off yesterday, which is working on the Panda design for the upcoming Weekend Panda game that's currently in its earliest stages of development. And today I am going to try and jump directly into work because it is Wednesday. And if you don't know, Wednesday is Indie Dev Hour Day, which is hashtag Indie Dev Hour. I will write that on the screen over here while I'm talking. Indie Dev Hour. And Indie Dev Hour is a time when folks can get together online and use the hashtag. Hang on one second. Is that you making horrific noises? Okay, horrific noises have stopped. But Indie Dev Hour is a time when you can get together with other indie developers online and just kind of talk about what you're working on and see what other people are doing. And it's a really cool time. But it is in an hour from now. So I don't want to miss that, and I expect other people don't want to miss that. So I'm going to try and keep this to an hour, and then we'll just jump right in. So I'm going to turn off my webcam again, because again, Cintiq's over there, and you won't see me on the screen anyway. So let me get that, and we're good in shape. Okie doke. If anybody wants to chat, the little chat window is open and available. I realized yesterday during a review of yesterday's video that the recording, you can't see the chat. So I'm going to have to, I guess, get some sort of module thing so that you can see the chat in the stream recording in case you're watching this later on YouTube or something. But for now, I will just read what people write if I'm responding to it, and hopefully that works. Okay, so yesterday we narrowed down to these three delightful little pandas, and now we need to figure out what we're going to do. So after resting, sleeping on it, which is always a good idea when you're making art decisions, I realized that while I like this guy in the middle, the truth is he's just not quite right for this particular project. So I think that probably I'm going to just stick with this guy and this guy to fine tune and figure out which version or what I want to go with. The two of them are similar, obviously, because they have the same bodies, but the faces are different. And I haven't 100% figured out which direction I want to go. So what I'm planning to do is work on the final character model drawing thing, and then I will kind of play with the faces a little bit more, and then we'll make a decision. And if anybody wants to chime in on if you prefer number 1 or number 3, let me know, because these are good things to know. All right, so in the meantime, I got my circle that is going to be the hit state for this particular character, and I'm going to kind of just sketch out the body so that it mostly follows that hit state, but it can overlap here and there just to keep it more visually interesting. And then the plan for today, other than to do this part, is to get an idea of what style to go with in the final, kind of the final appearance of the game. And I'm going to try 3 different styles, I think today. I should have time for that. If not, then it'll happen tomorrow. But the 3 styles are going to be with a thick, dark outline, like the old Cube Tunes comics, if you're at all familiar with the old Cube Tunes days. And then a slightly thinner outline that's colored. And I can give an example of that. Oh, well, I'll just do it now real quick. So I might, hang on. Oops. Okay, what am I doing? Right, that. Okay, so the colored outline will look something like that. It won't necessarily be red, it'll be the color of the panda, but it will, it'll be a different feel than a thick black outline. I'm just going to try and see which one maybe works better and that sort of thing. And then the last one will be no outlines and just kind of the shapes blending into one another. Let me get back off of red. Okay. What am I doing? Oh, right. Okay. If you are a user of Krita, or really any program now, I guess, have these sort of features. If you look where I'm, wait, can you see it? Yeah. If you look where I'm looking in the layer palette over here, you'll see this little checkbox, the last one, which is like a grid. It's a really cool feature that if you don't know exists, here is me telling you that it exists. When you click that, it only colors or only paints over whatever's already on the screen. So if I did a big brush stroke like that, and then I turned on this little grid icon, I could go in with another color and then only paint that part of it. And it's a really, really nice feature to have for when you're working on coloring, well, pretty much anything, because it saves a lot of time. So that's my plan for whenever it's time to color the line art. I'm just going to use that feature. But for now, we're keeping things rough and sketchy. So I can see immediately with the one that I'm working on now that his head is smaller at the top than the other ones. And I'm not sure if I like that or I don't like that. I think I'm going to make it a little bit wider because that's what's in the original and I kind of like it. All right. And I can go back and tweak all this stuff, but for now I'm just kind of figuring it out. Okay, so then we need to add his arm back on over here. And I'm trying to get it as close to that red line as I can without compromising too much of the design. And it's working out very well right now because I went through all of that process yesterday to kind of figure things out. Okay. So I think that's general body shape that I'm looking for. And regardless of what face I use, I'll probably go with something like this. And I'm going to try and not work too clean yet, but this is when I need to really start to make sure I've got the right foundation for when I go over and ink it at the end. Or not at the end, but next step is inking. Okay. All right, well that should probably do for now. Okay, so let me do a new layer for my wait. Okay, so I'm just gonna toss in some lines specifically for figuring out proportions and things, and then that way I can turn off that layer later and it won't get in the way. But for now it very much helps because then I know where I need to put the nose and things, but I'm not going to be on the nose yet because I need to figure out other things first. Okay, so proportion wise it looks like halfway or so is where the stomach line comes to. By the way, if you're into animation at all, this is when figuring out divisions like here can be really, really helpful because then you can keep things consistent. Not that I am an expert at that consistency thing, but at least it helps. So, so we got his stomach line, and then his head line is probably a third-ish total. So right about, well, instead I will judge it based on where it hits the... I'll judge it based on this space here rather than the whole thing because it's just easier to see it from there. Okay, I'm happy with those proportions. Yeah, those are alright, I think. Alright, good deal. So we've got the basics in place, and I will probably do the feet on another layer, maybe everything else on another layer. So let me call this body, and then we'll put on feet. That way I can move stuff around easier, because I'm not exactly sure how big I want the feet and where I want the feet to be. Might be nice if the feet kind of match the shape of his paw, because repeating elements is a good deal. So I will grab that and then move it. Beauty of digital art. Now we'll go over here first. So put that there. And then do the other side. Similar shape. Now I'm making one of the feet smaller even though he's not in that dramatic I need to fix the body real quick. Even though he's not in that dramatic of a perspective, I am keeping the other foot smaller just for the sake of... Sorry, it's hard to talk and draw at the same time. I'm sure I'll get better at this, but you have to figure that out. For the sake of appeal, having contrast really helps. So putting one foot smaller than the other one is generally useful. Okay, back to the feet. So those feet are okay for now. I think I might swap them so that they're facing outward instead of inward. But for now it works. And then we will do the ears on their own layer, just in case I want to change it. Later. And so that's another thing, that this ear on this side is probably closer to where it needs to be, but if I was doing a real 3D thing and not graphic, then this ear on this side would probably actually be over here more, and I may change it later, but for now, for graphic purposes, I'm gonna stick it all the way on the other side. Breaking the rules. I got in a lot of trouble in art school for doing what I just did there, because I've always been more comfortable with graphic design rather than really solid 3D drawing that you really need in animation. And so back in animation school, I would always get in trouble for putting ears and things in the wrong place. And I'm sure my old teacher is somewhere tisking me for doing that, but we're going to do it for now. Alright, face. Okay, now we've come down to it. I've done everything that I can do and put this off for as long as I possibly can, but now I need to figure out the face. So I think right now I'm leaning towards number 3, because he just feels a little less dopey than the one number 1. He feels a little more with it. And regarding the game itself, having the panda character be a little more not dopey is probably where I want to go. So for now, we're just going to stick with the face on the number 3 character. And we can always tweak stuff later, but I think that that's the way to go. I'm trying to contrast the shapes here too, so that the left eye is slightly more of a regular, normal shape, and then the right eye will be unique, and that gives it a little more appeal than if I did two eyes that were identical. So like on this guy, his eyes are much closer to the same, and that works. It's not bad. It's just if you can get that contrast in there, it really helps sometimes. So, okay. Eyeballs. Make sure that there's no ugly tangents in there. Keep that. All right. So we got that guy, and then I guess I could go with any sort of nose. Maybe I'll do one more layer on the nose and just try some stuff. Okay, so we're gonna give him just a regular nose first, and now let's mess with it. What if we make the nose big? No. So I like the bigger nose or the smaller nose? I think smaller nose. What if we made the nose super small? Or long and flat? I could do that. What's that look like? Well, that's not terrible. Could move the nose down too, but no. These are the little minute tweaks that you have to figure out when you're designing, because the sky's the limit, and it's totally up to me which I want to do, which means that infinite possibilities cause me to second guess everything, which I think a lot of artists go through. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts on those two? Obviously, if you're watching a recorded version of this, then you may have thoughts, but can't share them because you're in the future. But anybody present who wants to chime in on this one, let me know if you have any thoughts on the nose. I think I will go with closer to the original drawing. Now the question is, do I overlap it at all or keep it separate totally? Alright. We're going to go with there for right now and see what happens. Okay. That's what we're going to call good enough. Right. Okay. So now we've got the general character model that we're going to use. So let me save that since I just did a bunch of work, and then last thing I need is to lose it. And then we'll save this as an alternate version so that we can play around with inking. I'll get rid of the reference, and apparently I drew stuff on the body layer, which I shouldn't have, so we'll get rid of that. Alright. And then we're going to move him. Nope. Not going to move him. Why are we not going to move him? I need you to move all of the layers. There, Krita. Sometimes I still get stuck doing things that I remember doing with like Photoshop, but it's not the same in Krita, so I'm still figuring that stuff out. No. Okay. Maybe we can't move him up. Oh, there we go. I don't know why that didn't work last time, but sure. I see. Can't transform everything, but I can at least move him. Okay. All right. So now we've got him kind of how we want him. I'm going to merge down some layers, and then we'll I think we'll turn off the circle for now, and that way I can just up the size of him a bit. Oh right, I was gonna mess with the feet too, because I don't really like the feet. Alright, I might as well do that now. Okay. So with the feet, let's try just rotating slightly so the feet are splayed outward a little bit more. And I guess I better put the footprints on the bottom of the feet, if this thing is supposed to be the final. No, I don't know. I don't like that as much. It gets tricky. What if we move this one down a little so it breaks that plane? That'll probably help some. Alright. I'll do for now. And if I have to go back and change things later, that's something that can happen. Alright. So let's go back to combining all the layers again. And then we'll run a little bit of cleanup so that we can get a better idea of where the lines go. Okay, so I don't need to continue. I don't need to be super clean on this one because I'm going to go back and do this guy in Affinity Designer, which is vector based, so that I can resize it to any size that I want. So I don't have to go super clean on this while I'm inking, but I'm going to try and get it at least somewhat clean so that I can check the styles that I want to try and use, but it's not a huge deal if it doesn't get super clean. Okay, so first up we have thick lines. Do I want to re-ink it? How do I want to do this? We'll just start. Alright, so thick lines, and now you'll see that most of the work from here on out is just pushing Control Z, because you want the lines to be really smooth, but if I'm not accurate with them, I have to undo them and try again. I suppose this is the first time I've done inking while streaming, so I guess inking requires a lot more of my concentration because I'm finding it much more difficult to hold a useful conversation. You'll have to forgive me as I figure this out and learn as I go. I imagine eventually I will get better at inking while talking. For now, there will be long silent pauses as I figure this out. See, it helps to make sound effects while you're drawing. You go whoop. It doesn't really. Come on, blast the line. There we go. Cool. You're getting too detailed there, bud. Just let it be. This doesn't have to be perfect. All right. Oh, somebody's chatting. There we go. Now I can talk. Yes, now you can talk. That's good. Somebody's talking because I feel like yesterday everybody was chatting and contributing to what needs done, giving thoughts and opinions, and today it's just quiet, too quiet. So feel free to chat all you want. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, totally just go for it. Yeah, I have a feeling that these feet are going to have to be redone whenever I do my final version because I'm just not super happy with them, but they'll work for now. This line will be no fun at all. That went better than expected. So here's an art tip sort of thing. Most people probably know this, but if you don't, it's fine. When you're, especially when you're doing inking, but when you're drawing in general, you want to do nice long strokes that rotate at your shoulder. So let me turn on my webcam again for a second so I can illustrate that. First I have to figure out how to do that again. Okay, there we go. Okay, so when you are working and drawing, the best thing you can do is, instead of sitting there like this and doing tiny little motions with your wrist, you want to get your whole arm and your shoulder into it. So your pivot point should be as high up as you can for nice even strokes. And that's why you saw me hitting Control Z over and over and over again, because every time I'm doing these long strokes to try and get the smoothest motion in place. And then if you have any really detailed work, you can use your wrist and lock your arm, but the more you can go with bigger strokes, the better off it's going to end up being. Generally speaking, you know, every rule is made to be broken some of the time, but that's one useful thing that I have discovered after years and years of work. All right, so finish up the face. We'll zoom in a bit for him. The face is probably going to be the least pretty part of all of this inking because it's such fine. Come back to that. See, when I'm working in this detail, I can't as easily work from my shoulder, so the lines don't go where I want them to as much. Alright, I'll make it work for the sake of getting this done so we can move along. Okay. Move down to a smaller brush because it's getting more and more detailed. Once again, we'll go with good enough. Eyeballs. Is that good? Do we like that? Let's look at them from far, far away. I think the eyes need to be a little bigger from far, far away. Okay. Alright, that should do. Turn off that, and we have an inked panda. Alright, so it's 1:30, that's good timing. What I'm going to do now is try 3 different styles for this character and try not to sit here and touch up tiny little things like I'm doing right this second, but happens. Okay, let me add his paw. They don't have to be perfect, but at least they'll be. If you were here yesterday or watched the video, last video, you will see I have said that panda paws do not look like what I am drawing right here. They are really cool and interesting and complicated, but I'm simplifying them for the sake of this character because it doesn't need to be completely physiologically correct. He's okay being a modified panda. So, okay. I think that'll do. So now what we will do is we will copy this, or first let's save. Always save. Okay, we'll duplicate this layer 3 times, 2 times, so that we get 3 copies. Then we'll move stuff around. And alright, so I'm content to working. Hang on one second. I'm content to working the size, but we're running out of room. So let me change the width of the canvas to 2000. There we go. Now we have some more room to mess around with things. Oops, not that guy. Okay. So what we're going to do is have 3 different styles to work with. The first one, which is this guy. Whoops. 1, 2, 3. Yes. All right. So this first guy we're going to do in this harsh black outline like I'm drawing with right now. And then the second guy here, we're going to use a colored outline. Now pandas are traditionally black and white, so the color outline may be like a gray, but I'll probably add a little bit of blue or purple into it just to make it a little more interesting, but we'll go with that. And then this last one, we're going to turn off the outlines after I color everything in, and the outlines will disappear completely, and we'll see how that looks. I don't expect to totally get an idea of which one to use today, but you never know. So we'll figure that out. Let me think one more thing before I move on. Do I want to color them all before? Yes. Okay, so the inside colors are all going to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those 2 that I just made and then color this guy in before I mess with the rest. Okay, so start a new layer, which is just color. And I have cap locks now. And then I will color with the magic wand tool because it's just far easier. So all the places that need to be dark, we'll select and then go to select grow selection, which does not pop up, I don't think, because the little pop-up windows don't happen unless I enable them. I'm not going to go into that now. But anyway, I'm growing the selection by 2, and then I'll go to my color layer, and we'll just, for now, fill them with a nice slate bluish gray. And as you can maybe see, or you can see definitely if I zoom in, the magic wand tool doesn't always get everywhere. So I'll go back in and touch up areas that need touched up with just painting in the little nooks and crannies. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything. All right, now we'll do the other parts in white. And I think that I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it all black and white. I might add like a pink nose I haven't decided that stuff yet, but it's fine. We're not really on color. Exact colors. Hey, Mutant Squirrel. Mutant Squirrel says, hey-oh. It's good you're here. Nobody else is talking. So I know I can count on you to talk a bunch. Okay, so we are going to then grow this selection by two pixels. And then we'll color that in with almost white, but not quite white. It looks like white, but it's not all the way white. Okay, so that works for now, I think. I will go ahead for now again and make his nose pink. Oh, I missed some dark around the eyes. Make the nose pink for now because it's adorable. And the target audience of my aunt will enjoy a pink nose panda. And then I'm thinking that the feet are probably also going to end up being pink. Do I want to do that now or later? Let's do it now. These colors, if you weren't here to listen, Mutant Squirrel says, would have been here to talk to much sooner, but traffic, what can you do? Well, you can have a hovercraft. But otherwise, no, you can't really do anything. So these colors that I'm working with now are not final. I'm just kind of putting stuff in just to figure out the style stuff that I need to work on. What is this dot here? This dot on his foot is frustrating me. What layer are you on, Dot? That layer. Be gone, Dot. There we go. Okay. Better. That would have annoyed me until I eventually cracked. Okay. So his final feet are not going to be that pink because that's super distracting and I don't like it. It's alright, I guess, from afar, but I'll probably tone that down. But for now, it works because now we're going to move on to the rest. So what I want to do now is duplicate again. 2. Duplicate 3. Now we'll move those over. Okay. And then we'll duplicate the colors as well. And we'll match those up in a second, but for now, it'll be fine. And I'm sure that there's a much better way to do this than what I'm doing, but I'm doing it this way because it's fast. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I will eventually go back and redo these in vector form so that I can resize them as needed on the game. Okay, so here we go. So this first one is pretty much what I would like it to be, but I'm going to add a little bit of a thicker outline around the whole thing, I think. So we'll go with a new layer underneath. So if anybody ever saw the old Cube Tunes comics, though I didn't do them all in this exact same way, the old Cube Tunes comics had this thick black outline around the... Why is that over top? Oh, because it's not under the color layer, probably. Let's try this again. Yeah, there we go. Now it's behind. Okay. So the old Cube Tunes comics had this thick black outline around everything that mostly I did as a style choice, but also because it made inking easier at the time. and then later it became a pain in the butt instead of it being easy. So I don't know, I still like some aspects of that. And because this character will be the player character, or one of the player characters, I do want it to stand out against the background a lot. So I feel like if I try some things with a thicker outline around the exterior, it might be interesting to see if that helps the contrast of the background. Good design on my part and good color choices will do the most help to make it stand out against the background, but spoiler, backgrounds and I don't always get along, so I'm gonna cover my bases here and try and do something that will assist me in not having to do a perfect background. I don't have a lot of practice with backgrounds. I don't know if anybody else here does, but it's something that's not a strength of mine because I just don't do it enough. The thing is, it's so detail oriented, you know? You have 1,000 lines that, especially when you're talking about animation. In animation, one shot, you know, you have to have a background for every shot. But one shot might be on screen for like 5 seconds. So you put all this work into the background that most people don't even really look at that much. And some gorgeous backgrounds from old Looney Tunes cartoons and things are amazing. But it's not a skill set I have. Okay, so that's the thick outline version. And that's, oh yeah, Studio Ghibli. That, I mean, just, see, the thing about their backgrounds, though, and everything, is that you can just pause any frame of a Ghibli animation, and you could just hang it on your wall, because every single frame is just drop-dead gorgeous. And so one day, maybe I'll get to that point, but today is not that day. Okay, so for number 2, we're going to go in and use this paint over lines tool, and I'm going to darken the color a little bit, and then I'm going to give him a, that's too dark. Alright, that's probably fine. I'm going to give the outline of this guy color so that the lines fade a little bit more, and also just to kind of see what it will look like in a bit more subtle. This will make the whole character feel probably more part of the game itself. Hopefully, it's possible, because we're going in with a color instead. So you can see that just by doing a slightly darker color, and hopefully you can see that, I'll zoom in all the way. See, by doing just a slightly darker color, then it changes the feel a lot when you zoom out, because the second guy here now is much more subtle than the first one, which hits you over the head with its art. So I'll just go ahead and paint these. I'm not sure how I want to handle the white outline, or the outlines that border all the white spots. I'm going to try to paint those separately, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, and then whoops, too much. This nose color, and we'll do these in that color, I think, just to make them stand out a little bit more for now. Okay, and then I need gray. Enough. All right. we're going to start with this and see what happens, and if it doesn't work, we can go back and fix it. But for now, I'm experimenting here. What's the most fun thing you can think of? Watching somebody color lines, surely. It's fun to do though, so I'll give you that much. If you've never had an opportunity to color lines with the transparency turned on a layer, it's just such a joy. I could just sit and color all day, except then we'd starve to death because you can't make money just doing this all day. Well, I suppose maybe somebody would hire you to do it, but anyway, okay. So that's kind of where he's at right now with the colored outlines. Not super happy with exactly everything, but it'll give us an idea of that style. And that's all I'm really going for right here. So last up, we have number 3. And let me save again. Number 3 is going to be the same color. Whoops. Turn on transparency. Same color as the thing around it. So essentially we're getting rid of all of the lines completely. And I don't know how that's going to look, and it'll probably need messed with a bunch, but I just wanted to try it to see if that would work. And I'm probably going to have to do something subtle on the parts that overlap, like, hang on. So there's a line right here, this now bright blue line. That kind of is important for, well, yeah, it's probably important for defining the two spaces. So I'm going to have to go back in and make that line something as opposed to nothing. So I'll color it blue for now so that I don't forget later to go in and do that. Those little things will be useful to have later on. All right, almost done. And then we can step back and look at it and see which is going to be the best option. And even now, it's not going to probably jump out which is the best option. Again, I'm going to have to go back and sleep on it a little bit and kind of just figure it out. Also, depending on what the backgrounds and stuff look like, that would probably change my opinion as well. What is this? Why is that there? Mutant Squirrel says, might look good with some sort of highlights or shading. Yep, that is probable. I guess I'm going to have to figure that out as well, because I haven't quite figured that part out yet. So I want it to definitely have, I don't want it to go too heavy on the shading, just because I don't think that the overall style of the game will have a ton of shading. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But I think that having some shading is probably going to have to happen because it's just part of it. It'll definitely add more definition. So I agree with you. It's probably going to look better if I have some shading in there. So maybe tomorrow we'll mess around with some shading options. First, we have to pick this. Okay. I think that's all the lines except these guys, which need to just be like subtly different, darker color. Whoops. Whoops. So that adds a little bit of that definition in the arm, but it's too dark. You can see that already. Oh, to define the areas. Yeah, that's a good call. Nuts to this, I'm going to do that. All right, so that means instead of what I just did, what I need to do is color this line that color, and then go to this color layer and color his, whoops, that is still blue. That's not what I want. Color his back paw. Yeah, I agree. That is much better. I'm going to need to tweak it, but it is definitely the direction that I'd rather go than what I was just doing. So, thank you. Save the day again, squirrel. Well, I'll keep tweaking it, but it's definitely more along the lines of what I'd hope to do than the outline or than the lines. So, all right, for now that works because it's 1:51 and we need to kind of look at these and get some ideas of what's going on before we go enjoy Indie Dev Hour. Okay, so there you go. Where we're at right now is that we have 1, 2, and 3. These are our potential styles. We have a nice bold one at 1. We have a more subtle one with lines at 2, and then we have no lines at 3. My inner graphic designer loves number 1 because it is so bold, but I feel like maybe 2 or 3 might suit the game better. I don't know. It's so hard. I hate this. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on 1, 2, and 3? Because I'd love to hear some feedback on that because boy oh boy, options abound. Well, while you guys are thinking and hopefully chiming in on the chat, I will say that right now I'm leaning towards 1, but I think it might be useful to do some backgrounds and see what these 3 look like against it. Squirrel says, hard to call, depending on background style, yep, or even gameplay, it changes my opinion. I like 3 and 1 best, purely on visuals. I agree. And that surprises me because I expected to like 2 best. And maybe if I kept tweaking 2, it would work better, but right now it's not. All right. I wonder what would happen if I put a dark outline around 2. But I'm not going to do that right now. That might be something I do overnight. Okay, so in the meantime, I will wrap things up. I'll turn my webcam back on and say hello again. There we go. Okay, so I hope everybody enjoyed today's art stream. I appreciate the feedback. If anybody has any other thoughts in the meantime, just send me a tweet or I don't think there's any like private messaging on Twitch or anything. If there is, I haven't learned it yet. But you can just shoot me a note wherever and let me know what you think. Otherwise, tomorrow we're going to do one more stream. That's going to be at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I'm probably still going to be in my pajamas. That's fine. And what I'm going to do is I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow yet, to be honest, because now I'm confused. Originally, I was going to take whatever we decided here into Affinity Designer and start the final model, which this guy looks like. Well, I suppose I could still do that. I'll just not decide on the particular style. Well, we'll figure it out. But tomorrow, either we're going to take this into Affinity Designer and start doing some final vector format of this guy, or we might start working on background design, platform design stuff, and that way we can put these on top of that, like Squirrel said, and that'll help to kind of make us have a direction, I think. I don't know. we'll figure it out. But anyway, that's about it for today. It's 1:55. As I said earlier, and let me write it on the screen one more time for anybody who maybe missed it. In 5 minutes, there is Indie Dev Hour. Indie Dev Hour. And I spend it on Twitter, although I imagine it's other places as well. And Indie Dev Hour is a place where you can go and check out what indie developers are currently working on this week, or what they've released recently, and all kinds of other fun stuff, and you can just chat and have a good time. It's a really neat way to find new things that you haven't seen. I do my best not to just make it a giant promotion of what we're working on, but you got to get it out there too. So it's a cool thing to see all the different stuff, and I think it works well because it allows people to bounce ideas off of each other, and it's a neat thing. So if you're at all interested, I will be over on Twitter momentarily for Indie Dev Hour. But if not, then I hope to see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. And if you can't make that one, I will start figuring out the following week. Next week is, let's see, pull up the calendar real quick. Next week is the week of April 9th through the 13th. Ooh, Friday the 13th next week. So next week I will be doing some more streaming, and I'll keep you posted on what that will be like schedule-wise. I will hopefully post it here on the Twitch page. I'm working on some little art for the actual page itself. I didn't realize you could post stuff down there. So I'm going to figure that out. Okay, I'm just rambling at this point, so I'm going to shut up. I'll see you at Indie Dev Hour. If not, then I'll see you next stream. Thanks for coming, guys. See you later.